Welcome back, and we're going to complete our funny cake. As you can see, I have a pre-made pie crust, which we are going to put in our pie plate. Now I know I said cake, and you're looking at a pie plate. That's what makes it funny cake. We are going to put the pie crust in here, then we're going to add the cake batter and the chocolate. Oops, I can't get it out. I purchased a pre-done pie crust. If you choose to make your own from scratch, that's great. If you want to buy one of the box ones where you add the water, that's also great. I just decided to buy a pre-made one, and I let it come to room temperature, and I'm going to carefully unroll it. It's a tricky little bugger. Okay. I am using a deep dish pie plate because of the liquid involved with the funny cake. I would not recommend using a regular pie plate because it would just be too much liquid and it would overflow. Now, as with any pie crust, it's always a little tricky getting it in the plate evenly without tearing it. If it goes in uneven and you have to play around with it, that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just want to make sure it kind of lays up against the glass. If you do poke a hole in it, you just kind of stretch it around or break off a long piece and put it over there. Patchwork it. Doesn't matter. It gives it a more homemade look, even though it's a store-bought. So as you can see, mine is not perfect, but that's okay. I have a knife here if I would have had overhang, but you know what? I want to make it look homemade, so I'm just going to crimp it just the way I usually do. It'll be uneven, but that's what makes it look more rustic and homemade. So I'm just going to do the one my mom taught me. We have two fingers like this and a finger like this, and she just had me do that. Do like a little scalloped edge. As you can see, it's not always even all the way around, but that's all right. Oops. So you just kind of play with it. If you want, you can also use a fork tong, and you can just go around with your fork tong. That would give you more of a line through it rather than a scalloped edge. The other way is you can just tuck this under and not do anything at all. Tuck the long part under and still gives you a little bit of edging. Like I said, whatever you want to do. Oops. Sometimes it'll fall away, but that's homemade. Always is homemade or semi-homemade is not always perfect. So there. Yeah. There we go. You can always also buy the frozen ones, which have pre-scalloped edges if you don't want to have to do that. Now, we have our pie crust in place, and we're going to take the cake batter. As you can see, it is cake batter consistency. I kind of check the bottom just to make sure none of the flour stuck to the bottom and didn't get incorporated. I always do that when I mix with my mixer. I'm going to pour it in the cake pan, or the pie crust, excuse me. And just try to get it all in there. It is not going to fill up the pie plate all the way. It probably will do it almost half. Let's try to get that. Let's try this. See if I can scrape it down a little bit to get all the excess. Otherwise, Dwayne will be in here ready to lick the bowl. Get that in there. Crust back there. I think just a little bit too warm, room temperature. As you can see, it's probably about halfway. And then next we have the chocolate mixture. Now the reason they call this funny cake, outside of the fact it's made in a pie plate, is the fact that you have your cake batter in the pie crust, and we're going to add the chocolate liquid, which is still thin. It didn't thicken up or anything. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour this on top. We're not going to swirl it in with a knife or anything like you would do with marble cake. We're just going to leave it on top. And while it bakes, the chocolate sinks through the cake batter. Sometimes it will sink all the way to the bottom and create a chocolate layer. And sometimes it'll just mix through the cake, making a marbling effect. Hence, funny, because you never know how it's going to turn out. I've already had it where I've had a little bit of chocolate on the bottom and the cake was marbled. So it's always fun to see, once you cut the cake, how it's going to turn out. Just take this and we just pour it right over it. Just kind of go around. Just kind of swirl it around. It starts to work its way into the cake batter. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to cover it all the way. It's not like you're icing a cake. There we go. And this is our funny cake. As you can see, the chocolate is just kind of setting there. As it bakes, it will rise up almost to the top here. That's why I like to use a deep dish. If this were a regular pie plate, it kind of would go up a little high and you might end up, having a little bit of overflow in the oven. So I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees. We're going to bake this for about 30 to 35 minutes. We will use a cake tester. I'll check it about 25 minutes just to test it, because with ovens they vary, so you may want to check maybe after 20-25 minutes and at 30 minutes with your cake tester. If you don't have a cake tester, a sharp knife, the tip, or even a fork or toothpicks. Okay, let me put this in.